So a public hearing was held on July the 30th to receive submissions from the public regarding proposed official community land amendment bylaw number 432, 2017, and land use amendment bylaw number 433, 2017. This public hearing is continuing today, September 4th, 2018, in order to receive further submissions from the public. Anyone who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. Excuse me. Any person who wishes to present a written submission to council may do so, and all written submissions must be received by council before the close of this hearing and presented to the minute taker. If a member of the public wishes to address council, they will be asked to sign the speakers list and should begin by clearly stating their name and address for the record. Comments should be related to the subject bylaw and be directed to council. Members of council may ask questions to seek clarification following your presentation on points raised. However, the main function of the council members is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council members to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. In considering the proposed bylaw, council has received documents which may influence its decision. These documents are available for viewing during this hearing. Your only opportunity to comment on the proposed bylaws is during this hearing, as members of council may not receive further submissions, verbal or in writing, after the close of this hearing. Council can determine when the proposed bylaw will be scheduled for consideration, and council may either adopt or defeat the bylaws, or alter and then adopt the bylaws, provided that the alteration does not alter the use, increase the density, or without the owner's consent, decrease the density of any area from that originally specified in the bylaw. So, this is the continuation of our public hearing. What do we got, Tyler?
The only addition that we have is an on-table letter from Don Youngson, which is part of your agenda package.
Okay.
Was that part of our regular council agenda?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, there it is. Oh, that was special council, that was public hearing.
Okay,
I believe at the moment we'll
so there are,
presentation from
we
Daniel.
have no verbal presentations?
There's nobody signed up to speak to.
Okay, so I will ask again. I'm calling it for a second time for public input and calling a third time for further submissions. There being no further submissions, we adjourn the public hearing.
Well, then we have to do one of these recommendations at the bottom. So I would move that all written and verbal submissions regarding the Rhode Island Municipality Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 432, 2017, and Land Use Amendment Bylaw number 433. Did they really go back to 2017, Daniel? 2017, up to and including September 4th, 2018, be received, and that the public hearing be adjourned.
Excuse me.
Second. Okay, any discussion before I call the question? All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Okay, that's that. I will now reconvene. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so we are reconvened. The only item left on our agenda, item 16.1. So, I'll make a few comments if I may to start. I think this is in fact, an extremely modest and incremental approach to dealing with the community lands. We've owned the lands for over 12 years and done nothing with it. And the reality is that doing the OCP amendment and the rezoning still does nothing with it. There's nothing built on Lot 2 yet, which was rezoned some time ago. Nothing built on Lot 3 yet, which was rezoned a long time ago. Rezoning the land doesn't mean very much when the community owns the land. Because whereas this gives lots of rights to the owner, when the municipality is the owner, there's considerable opportunity for further discussion and public process before we get down to the point of actually subdividing off a piece of it and moving ahead and doing something with it. So this is really, I think somebody said it was kind of a shopping list, particularly the area 1 thing where all manner of things theoretically could happen if somebody wanted it to happen, had a process for making it happen, and the council of the day was supportive of the project happening. So really, as I said, nothing moves ahead. Hopefully, the area up by Green Road, that lot can be sold off and become somebody's home and put some money into reserves for us. Hopefully, the area up by Belterra, and I'm speaking personally, I hope that that can become a co-op housing project with 20 units. I think that would be feasible, it would work, financially viable, and would end up with people owning their own homes on Bowen. And I think that the area 1 is going to be a long time before anything really happens there, but at least we put it out there. We've divided Lot 1 up and we put it out for people to think about what they would like to see there in the future. So that is all I have to say on it. Is there any other discussion before we work on the motion itself?
I'm trying to find.
Yes, Gary.
I think due to the feedback from the gathering we had, the housing gathering on the community lands and that sort of thing, I think we should drop the light industrial from area 1 on the Lot 1, or area.
Well, that would be a change of use and that would kill the whole thing. That would send us back to,
Would it?
yeah. You can't change of use is
Now
not.
we can pull some stuff out of there. What are you thinking?
The mayor has the language that you read, but so after a public hearing to alter the use,
Oh,
to
okay.
increase the density or decrease the density without, so we could decrease the density of the land, I guess, with the owners and we consent, but altering the use or increasing the density
The use is-
So
the use
we're
is-
altering the
use is a
use
problem.
by deleting industrial, correct?
by removing.
Correct,
uses,
yeah, well,
Yeah.
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 So what, the one thing I was going to raise, and I'm going back to the motion about the closure of the last public hearing, which I think is the minutes of the public hearing. The staff report back to council regarding the July 30th public hearing regarding Rhode Island Municipality Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw and land use bylaw, and then the public hearing be adjourned to September. It's normal process that we get a report from staff after the public hearing, putting together the themes from the public hearing and,
Yeah.
you know,
Got that.
so we haven't had that because the report from staff that we got before was dated July 26th, so it was before the public hearing. So we haven't had the normal staff report on the public hearing and the themes that came out of it, correct?
Sorry, we have that, don't we?
No.
Yeah. I have something here that said who said what.
That's the minutes, but we don't have the report from staff that has compiled what I would call the themes and if they saw anything from the public hearing that required even some technical amendments or changes.
So generally after a public hearing, you return with a staff report for
Yeah.
consideration of third reading.
And we haven't got that.
So is that what you said your understanding?
And that's for the motion that we passed.
That's
Yeah, the
what
public.
we've done, that I'm aware of for every public hearing
Yeah.
that I've been here.
But you didn't do it for this one?
No,
No, because
Right,
they do
right
it
here, right
following
now.
the closure of the public hearing.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
because the public hearing is on,
Yeah.
is ongoing now.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Uh,
because we wanted to have
the opportunity
the
for,
Right.
parts of it
So-
responded to lot 1 and
well, we wanted the public to be able to have the opportunity opportunity to provide comments because of that document.
Right,
And they couldn't because that document hadn't been released.
Right. So that was the reason for,
So the normal process would be that staff would come back to the September council meeting, the 24th, with a report on the public hearing and recommending or not recommending third reading. And I think we should follow that process.
well, that will
Also,
kill it then, right?
since Daniel was sick on July 30th, so we had his written report.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say more than that, essentially, it's what I've done every time is when the public hearing closes, that's my prepared report with all the comments, so the public hearing is closed, so I haven't prepared it.
And that is what we did get in the minutes of the
No,
last.
well, we got the
public hearing.
minutes, which is just a verbatim what everybody said. It's not
Right.
summarized into themes or.
It's not analyzed, but it's
Well, there's
recommendations
very
from
few
staff.
comments, keep that in mind. There were what, five or six people commented? This was not exactly a sort of public hearing that one would expect, with 50 people at microphones. And the minutes of the meeting captured everything that they brought to council for our consideration.
Well, the minutes were 4 pages long,
Yeah.
and a page-long list of people that wrote in submissions.
However, the submissions had been received before. Well, okay, but the bottom line here is, if you want to kick it down the road, you can, and if you don't want to kick it down the road, you don't have to. We can give it third reading and send it off to Islands Trust and get it back for our consideration before the end of our term, or we can kick it down the road and see how many more council terms we go without doing anything to get the process started on this land. But it's going to cost the next council the possibility of getting money in their reserve fund by selling some property. And it's going to kick down the road the possibility of co-op housing. And I don't think it's necessary when the light industrial end of it is all still in the hands of council in the future anyway, and it doesn't have to happen. It's entirely up to council. I'll go to Maureen.
I would just sort of work through the dates here, because there was some discussion of being able to have an
September
accelerated
24th is the
process.
council meeting.
Yes.
So
So
September,
that's the staff report and possibly third reading.
right,
And then you refer it to the Islands Trust. You've got
with the
30
request,
days.
with the request that they accelerate
And-
it, given the circumstances.
Well, they have 30 days, and if you refer it on the 25th, you get it back on November 25th. And,
I'm sorry, November the 25th?
well, 30
October.
days from October 20, still October 25th, yeah, but come back in October 25th. So if it was given third reading and no objections, then usually fourth reading is a standard thing unless there's some conditions
Right.
which we haven't imposed. So
So our
there's
final,
plenty of time
our final meeting of
in the end
this
of
term is
November.
October.
At the end of November. We're in office and, oh, sorry, the end of October, sorry.
It's
I'm out of
October
my-
22nd,
Yeah,
so it will be, our term will be over.
yeah.
Is there a council meeting though?
If
Our
we-
term is over.
It's one
as
last
of the
council
day
meeting.
The next council is sworn in, which
Yeah.
can't be before the first
Following-
10 days
following
in
month.
November.
Right, I mean, do you really believe that anything is going to come up between now and the next meeting that we haven't heard over the last 6 or 8 months? I mean, this thing has been kicked around.
I
so
thought
much.
there were some little technical things that needed to be dealt with in some of the written submissions.
Daniel, do you have any?
That were some
Suggestions.
Was there a suggestion about supportive housing and why that wasn't included?
There was a question about that from Peter Frinton, but it also was counterbalanced by a concern about there being too many uses to begin with. So it was an odd kind of suggestion. You know, on one hand, there's too much here, and on the other hand, by the way, you missed this.
I was wondering why we hadn't put supportive housing in.
I'm gonna say, I don't have anything that I'm aware of right now, but I'd also generally go through it in the report to bring back to you I had something, but I don't know.
So
So it's
just
been
a note, the new council's sworn in on November the 6th.
Right.
So we have the 24th, the 9th, and the 22nd as our council meetings.
Regular.
Right.
Yeah.
But when it goes, if on the 24th we do give a third reading, then it gets sent off to Islands Trust. But it is quite likely, it is quite possible that it would not come back to Islands Trust until after we had had the final meeting of this term. And to ask new council coming in at their first meeting to say, hi guys, how'd you like to support this?
They wouldn't have to do it at the first meeting.
Well, okay.
And
I mean,
There's been-
I'm just going by history on Coleman Island.
there's been lots of situations over the years where it's given third reading, and then there's been all sorts of conditions and stuff to be met before the meeting. It's happened 6 or 8 months afterwards, well into its next council's term. There's been a whole bunch of situations where it only got third reading.
And that could still happen. If something does come up, if we give this third reading and send it off to Islands Trust, and Daniel comes back with things that make it so that council does not wish to proceed, fourth reading can be deferred to the next council, or it can be turned down by this council. Right? It doesn't have to be proclaimed when it comes back. Yes, Gary?
Well, it's just a little bit frustrating, I guess. We pushed this down the road. We kicked it down the road because we split up the public hearing so that we could get all the information back from the workshop, which we got back,
Yeah.
which indicated pretty strongly that light industrial probably shouldn't be on that piece of property. So, but unfortunately, we should have handled it earlier on in the council meeting, the regular council meeting, if we were going to discuss it, which we didn't. Because now, of course, we're at the end of the public hearing and we can't change it.
We're back in the regular council
No,
meeting.
we're in the council
Yeah, but we
meeting.
can't change it.
We can do
Well,
anything.
we can do anything we want.
Oh,
But it just depends on certain things trigger a new public hearing.
well, that's
because
what I'm
you're
saying.
changing-
That's right,
I'm just
but
saying,
Yeah,
right?
but we
Same
couldn't
here.
have changed it before the public hearing, because you have to give 2 weeks' notice of what you're
Oh,
having the
okay.
public hearing on.
Okay, well, that's clarification.
Yeah, that makes no
Yeah, makes
difference.
me, okay.
All right, I'm just checking the Honest Trust,
If I may,
Yes.
the trouble is, I think many of us, for the best reasons, would like to get some zoning completed. The sticking issue, without doubt, is the light industrial. There is no point in having public hearings if we're not listening. Now, the weight of opinion is overwhelming, verging on crushing. People do not want to see in this lot light industrial. However you shake it, cut it and bake it, that's a fact. So if we keep talking about third readings, we are not dealing with this one fundamental root cause issue that I think we have to address. The great thing about light industrial is that the subject has been raised. I think it has, generally speaking, gained some real acceptance that somewhere on this island we need a light industrial zone. And I don't think that subject was raised before, so if nothing else, this discussion has brought that to the fore. We do need, on Bowen Island, a light industrial zone, and this discussion has raised that. And anyone who was there at the EDC meeting and listening to a presentation made by a representative from Early made a very forceful and very compelling argument for a proper light industrial zone situated in an area that we could agree on. If we go back through this whole history of this bylaw and our public hearing, there's a trail of opinions from A to Z. I had the greatest trouble, especially given the booklet just presented here, on setting that aside. I find that very, very difficult. Now, the other realistic issue is that it's all very well for me to say, okay, let's set that aside. The difficulty is, and I understand this, it means, I think this is a problem in the system a little bit, but unfortunately we then have to go back several steps, which takes a huge amount of time. I don't know how the rest of council are feeling, but I would have said if it wasn't for light industrial, the zoning of this would not be particularly contentious and simply go ahead and probably to a round of applause, and we could get on and deal with the issues that the mayor has mentioned, selling this and doing the right thing. But we do have the issue. And it's not an issue by 51% as opposed to 49. It's an issue by a huge majority, because if you can't go and count up all the comments, well, not that that's a particularly great exercise in and of itself, but you'll find the overwhelming opinion is light industrial in an area this close to the cove is something that we've had feedback that the people would rather not see. So if we ignore it, or set it aside, or don't allow for it, then I go back to my comment. Why do we have public hearings if we're not listening? So that's our dilemma, and I find it very, very difficult not to pay attention to what seem profound and sensible arguments raised. Not flippant comments, but people who took a lot of time, care and energy to make very good points by way of argument. And that is something we have to resolve. Now, the schedule, I don't know whether we can do this. And if we can't, how terrible is it to actually say, okay, sadly, we have to go back to get this issue resolved, move it forward, and then the next council, certainly not on its first, second, or maybe even third meeting, could take this, knowing the public support was there, and finalise the work we've started. I think it's a slippery slope when we don't pay attention to what we're told.
If I can just say something. The light industrial conjures up images, right? But it is everything from a guy making kayaks to somebody doing fine woodworking. And we have all kinds of other things on that property that could be as well. So for anybody to do anything, they're going to come before council cap in hand, and they're going to say, this is the project that I would like to do on that. This is my business plan. This is how I'm proposing it be subdivided. This is how I'm proposing it be leased. This is how I'm, And council of the day will look at it and say, we really don't want a water bottling plant there. So, sorry, we've decided as the owner of the property, right, and looking after the community interest, we won't approve that. So it's not like we're giving, you see, the difference here is normally you're giving the rights to a third party. And once you give the rights to a third party to do as they will on that land, you've shut the door and you've done it. Whereas the difference here is nobody's done anything, right? It all comes down to council again. So like I say, this is a very small incremental step of starting a process that will take years before anybody figures out how to physically put a building on there that satisfies the trail requirements and the sight lines and all of that sort of thing that will obviously come into play. But what, as you pointed out, it really brings to the fore the need on Bowen for some place for contractors to have shops, for somebody setting up a small business to have the potential to do it. It would show a need, and somebody in the private land comes up with something. Everybody on council would cheer and say, "You got it, right? You're out of the way. You're off in the woods somewhere. You can put the park there."
Conversely, though, it's going to be in the zoning bylaws that you can have a work and live place there, and somebody potentially could go in there and you could buy 5 lots.
You can't, because you have to buy it from the municipality. The municipality still has absolute, total, 100% control of what happens on that land.
Well, then why do we have any zoning bylaw?
Because we give the power to other people. The problem we have here is we've owned this land for a dozen years, and because nobody could figure out how a municipality rezones land for itself, nothing's ever happened. And if we fail to do it this time, another 4 years will go around before a council starts to tackle it again, or more, right? I mean, this council after council after council has come down to the end of their term. with one signature piece of legislation, and it's crashed and burned on the fire of the next election. And here we go again. Except for Sue Ellen, who's been very consistent and